Really awesome episode for us today, guys. Meeting with the head brewer at Bell Springs Brewery and Winery, one of the first and actually very few brewery and winery combo in Texas. Get ready, we're gonna sit down, grab a couple beers, and find out how this brewery and winery has not only survived, but also grown during a global pandemic. Let's check it out. So I'm here with Clem Villars at Bell Springs Brewery, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the brewery today. So Clem, why don't you give me a little bit of background on how the brewery gets started?
So we've had the licensing for the brewery since December of 2018, but things didn't really kick off until about a year and a half ago. When I initially applied here, I actually applied for the winemaker position.
Okay.
But through the interview process, the owner, my boss, Nate Pruitt, he had figured out that I've been brewing beer a lot longer than I had been making wine. So through the course of the interview, he lets me know that, Clem, I went with this other guy who actually has a degree in winemaking. His name is Nick Compton. He went with him to be the winemaker, but he positioned me and said, how would you like to take over the beer program and grow it into something, legit? If you were to fast forward to today, we have plans for expansion. The first thing we're going to do is expand the winery. You can't see it right now. Maybe you can get a picture, but behind this tree line, we're going to put an 8,500 square foot winery.
Wow.
Once we do that, that'll free up the warehouse that we have on the property, which will be the new brewery. So the brewery really kicked off with the licensing at least December of 2018. The winery has been around since 2009.
Okay.
So, tiny operation. Again, we have plans on expanding production, and we're pretty much maxed out in this space for the winery. Just wanted to point that out as we're walking through.
Okay. All right. So we're here in the brewery portion, where everything happens. So let's talk through some of the brewing process.
Mm-hmm. When we first started, we got 4 one-barrel SS Brewtech fermenters. And we outgrew that almost immediately. So it wasn't but maybe 3 or 4 months later we added on 2 more one-barrel fermenters, and we outgrew that immediately. And then maybe some of it's my fault. I like having 9, 10, 11 beers on tap, everything from a Helles to a Scotch Ale and an IPA. You know what I mean?
It's nice to have a diverse offering. I mean, that anybody that comes in that has something they like, right?
Right, absolutely. So outgrew that, and then we decided, well, let's get some 2-barrel fermenters. So we ordered 4 2-barrel fermenters, and for now, that's keeping up. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I like having 9, 10, 11 beers on tap, but we are opening our second location called Sidecar. It's basically downtown Dripping Springs. It operates much more like a bar, and it's been closed since pre-COVID. So we're getting ready to open that back up mid-next month, and we are going to have beer on over there.
Awesome. What types of beers did you start with as your flagship, and then how did it grow?
So the first person I talked to about this is actually my father-in-law, Mike Stewart, and arguably owns the best bar in the area called Taps, T-A-P-Z, in Johnson City.
Shameless plug.
You know it. It's called Taps. It's got like 30 taps of beer, 10 taps of wine. The place is amazing. So I figured the best person to ask would be him. What are your most popular beers? And he said, Clem, bar none, a blonde or something light like that, an amber, and an IPA. Those 3 you've got to have. So the blonde was at the top of the list for sure. I have a thing for British beers, and so one of the first beers I brewed was an ESB. Got a lot of flack for that, and so what I wound up doing is beefing it up a lot, and that is my brown ale. So it's English yeast, English hops, English malt, etc. And that was my way of kind of sneaking that back in there.
It's definitely a more niche style from what I've seen. Right. I don't see it very often.
No, and
especially here.
Helles. When I make a Helles, I don't want it to be just good or okay. Like, I literally want it to be the best out there. I want it to be comparable to something that didn't ship for thousands of miles and months over the sea. In the wine world, it's up to you're trying to take whatever God or nature did in the vineyard and help it express itself with as little adulteration as possible. That's why wine is sexy, and that's the name of the game with wine. But with beer, it's the exact opposite, and it's what the brewer likes and what the public likes. You know, we just started a beer club. We've yet to have our first meeting, but the direction that I would like that beer club to go into is, what do you guys want to see on the menu? I can allocate one of these fermenters strictly to beer club. You know, you guys want to see a Belgian quad, you want to see a 15% Russian Imperial Stout, whatever. You can do
I love it, like a flavor of the month deal or something like that. Yeah,
absolutely.
that'd be awesome.
You know, with a system this small, I'm not trying to go and spend $1,000 on a flow meter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the first batch, I might try to run off to the kettle a little bit faster, and if I'm still hitting my gravity numbers and I've learned something, and if I run off fast and my gravity numbers are a little bit low, well, I can make up for it in the next batch and beef that up a little bit. So especially for a nano brewery, creating your own recipes from scratch and that kind of thing, 1 barrel system, 2 barrel fermenters, it works. It works for us. But again, we have plans for expansion, and no, we're never going to go into distribution. That's not a thing for us.
Okay. Keep it local, keep it craft.
Oh, absolutely. I found a maltster from Texas. They grow 100% Texas barley. I'll be honest, Texans love Texas shit.
They do.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So the next thing was, well, if we're going to do a Texas beer, we got to find Texas hops. And that's when, you know, I'm kind of dismayed. It's very, very hot, and hops like wet feet. So I found a hopster, a hop grower, hop farmer, if you will, and they're in Austin somewhere. I haven't visited them. But yeah, so actually this upcoming Monday, I'm getting my hands on a hop called Triple Pearl. And I'm also getting my hands on a hop called Zeus that they've grown. So it might be a month and a half or so before we release the beer, but it's just, I'm thinking it's going to be a smash beer, single malt, single hop. So we'll use that 2-row barley that we got from Maverick Malt House is the name, if anybody's interested in that. And the hop dashery is the hop farm that I'm talking about also. So it might be a little while before we get it out to market, but I'm looking forward to it because, again, Texans love Texas shit, and that's okay.
When COVID and everything struck, so tell me a little bit about how it's affected the business and what you guys have done in addition to that to overcome it.
So when COVID initially kicked off, none of us knew how long this thing was going to go on, right? So production stopped immediately. At some point, every single fermenter in here was empty because if I've got a cooler full of 20, 30 kegs, what's the point of brewing more when that batch may sit there for 6, 7, 8 months? Who knows?
Right.
Then the state government said, "All right, you guys can do to go." Right. And so at that point, we had growlers, right, and we were selling maybe, I'm just throwing numbers out here, but maybe 10 growlers a week, you know. And we had a hardcore following too. I won't mention names, although I should, but a hardcore group of folks visited us religiously, and they also visited our neighbors, 12 Fox Brewery down the road, Apricot Brewery down the road. So big thanks to those guys. It just didn't seem like they were selling well, and we're like, well, let's try canning. It seems like everybody's canning right now. And immediately, once we offered cans, it was a night and day difference. Even on the weekends. You know, we're open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The general public can come, they can taste, they can grab a pint, whatever. We sell the hell out of cans now. It's just convenient.
Yeah, we can head back maybe to the tap room and go through some of the beer, maybe just a few final thoughts.
Yep.
The beer club. What are more thoughts on that? I know you mentioned wanting to grow that potentially to kind of almost like an experimental group.
Absolutely.
Right?
So how the numbers work on that is it's $30 a month, which is not a membership fee. It goes into your account. Okay, and when you come in, when you buy a beer, it's 15% off, and that beer can be paid for the money off of your account. We have a lot of regulars here.
For sure.
So if you're coming in once or twice a month and you're spending $30 or 25, whatever the math works out to be, you should probably just join. There's some sign-up perks as well. If you're a wine club member and you sign up for our beer club, you not only get a growler, but you get it filled. You not only get a pint glass, but you get it filled. for free. It's all included. If you're a beer club member and only a beer club member, you just get the glass. It's not filled. You also get a discount on everything.
So you mentioned the food truck. Ordinarily, you guys have a food truck here, correct?
The food truck is called Mind of Massaro. The gentleman's name is Mike Massaro. He's a great chef. Yeah. He's here Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is the only days that we're open right now. We used to be open 7 days a week. Then COVID happened.
Do they have a specific style of food they do, or are there matchings you guys do kind of with the beers, like pairings?
We now offer beer boxes. The beer box is beer-focused snacks. So it's like pretzels, cheeses, a mustard, sausages, that kind of thing. And a lot of thought and discussion went into that as well. We would offer to make it appropriate for beer, because of course we have wine-centric food, which has some grapes and some, I don't even know what they put in that stuff.
Cheese.
Cheese, yes, yeah, it's wafers, water crackers, I don't know. But yeah, so Mike has been putting together the beer boxes for our beer-focused stuff. Yeah.
That is, I mean, that's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
I love that. And especially, with it being a box, like a to-go fashion, right? That just fits more of those requirements right now.
Yes. Yes,
I love it.
That's the
such
main
a cool
thing,
idea.
is filling in the gap to get to the 51%, so we
sure.
can keep our doors open. COVID gave us an opportunity to rethink how we do business. Do we really need 30 somewhat part-time employees? Can we focus on maybe having a core crew of full-timers, or let's completely rethink things. And so we rethought through staff and what we need. We thought through canning instead of the growlers, and again, that proved to be quite a hit. It still does.
Awesome.
So there's a silver lining out there. Did you want to taste through some beers?
Yeah, let's do that.
We're starting off not necessarily from an IBU perspective, from least to greatest, but mainly from just how it feels, how it tastes.
Yeah.
From lightest to darkest and most bitter. All my lagers are steam beers, and when I first started here, I committed in my own head that I'll never do a lager here. At home, that's fine, but professionally, it's very time-consuming to do it right. Okay,
right.
And that's why when you look at the industry, there's very few lager houses. What steam beer is you use a lager yeast, but you're fermenting it at a much warmer temperature, like closer to ale temperatures. Okay, and so you theoretically you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting lager characteristics out of the beer, but you're also getting a speedier fermentation. And you're not having to worry about diacetyl rests and that kind of thing. It's essentially an ale fermentation. So it works.
But in a lager style.
There's
a level of respect for the different types of beers. I mean, overall, right? Like there's the mass-produced, the domestic or international. The ones that everybody knows your name. Cheers.
Yeah.
But then that's the beauty behind the local, the mom and pop shops, the Texas Hill Country, which has I don't know how many 50 plus wineries, a bunch of breweries, a bunch of distilleries. They're experimenting with different things. They're doing this steam lagering. They're changing up the game, for lack of a better term.
I guess that's the key for any brewery or brewer is finding your niche, right? And so as a brewer, you ask yourself, well, what are you doing that's cool? What are you doing to make yourself stand out and be different? Just for example, amber. We have an amber beer. We have a brown ale. We don't have a red, but we have a blonde, right?
You've got most of the spectrum covered.
Yeah, it's the color of the rainbow. So
that's true.
So if the blonde, you're not going to find a blonde out there that has as much character and as malt and backbone as mine. And so like the amber is just a color, and so is blonde, okay? And brown is just a color. And if you look up the BJCP guidelines, the Beer Judge Certificate guidelines on these, which list the vital statistics, if you will, on what constitutes an amber, a brown, etc. There's a lot of interpretation that you can do to get that color, right? Because it's just a color. There's a lot of ways to get to the same endpoint, and that's the interpretation that the brewer poses, is how do we get to that endpoint? Because we can make a brown ale that looks that dark, but doesn't taste that dark. In the same vein, if we're to talk about the IPA, everybody loves these hazy IPAs, right? Everybody loves them, and that's cool if you do. I had my fling, if you will, with hazy IPAs that lasted for a couple weeks. And what I really appreciated about the hazy IPAs was the nose. There was just these really tropical notes on the nose. But what I wanted to do with mine is the best of both worlds. I love West Coast IPAs. I like that punch in the face of bitter. I like that. You know, I miss that. I miss that. A lot of beers that come out, and again, the haze is a thing. You don't get a lot of that anymore. So what I did is, it's a hefty 75 IBUs. All the hops that go into the boil are your classic American C hops: Citra, Cascade, Centennial, Warrior for bittering. But the dry hop edition, which is a pound per barrel, is a little bit of Amarillo and mostly Mosaic. People come in thinking they know what they want, they think they know what they like, and that's fine. If you know you want my blonde or the Pilsner, that's cool. But I think another big goal of brewers in general, at least me, I can only speak for me, is guide them into other tastes, you know. So I'll say this very proudly, for a while, that was the #1 rated beer in the area, was the stout. I haven't looked recently because I don't want to look and be disappointed. So I'll just stick with that. Yeah, it was, maybe is the #1 rated beer in the area. I wanted to make something big, stupid, malty, boozy, hoppy. I was going for a Russian Imperial Stout, is what I was going for. But I didn't want it to just be just chocolate bitter. You know?
Right.
So that's where the oats came in. That's where the...
it's definitely got a much more complex flavor to dissect.
For sure.
For the smell, you just get instant coffee, instant roast, instant like a little bit of chocolate sweetness, but like a flavor that's just so much to it.
Yeah.
I love it, man. It's so funny. I never get enough of like hearing about the process and hearing about the details behind what inspires and what makes each beer that beer. And like and the brewers, they're so passionate about it. Like you're so passionate about it. You have so many ideas, and it's almost like there's always more ways to explore different flavor combinations, different ways of dealing with mouthfeel and water and type and chemistry, and that's what I love about brewing, man. It's such an art and a science. It's unbelievable.
Beer is fun, man.
Yeah.
It's like you said earlier. It's a merriment, however you say that, of science and art.
Yeah.
And as a brewer, you can brew whatever your heart desires, or your beer club desires, or your next customer says, "Man, I wish you had a Belgian quad. I like Dogfish 120. I like 20% IPAs. How about a 20% sour IPA? Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you can do whatever your heart desires, you know. And so it's a lot more work. It's a lot more tedious on a daily basis, but it's fun. It's so much more fun. You know? You go to 10 different breweries and taste 10 different ambers. There's a good chance they all taste different, because that's the brewer's interpretation of hitting that color. That's it.
It's definitely a passion of mine to spread that story. And thank you so much for taking your time today.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and a big shout out to Clem Villars, the head brewer at Bell Springs Brewery and Winery. As you can tell, Bell Springs is not only just innovating various regional styles of beers, but they're also, even during a global pandemic, still growing. And implementing a canning line and changing up the way they do business has allowed them to grow rather than stay flat or even go out of business. They've implemented a food option with that Mind of Massaro food truck, doing those craft beer food style boxes, which is really cool idea, something I've never seen before. So I'm looking forward to getting down there and checking that out sometime soon for sure. And I also appreciated that Clem mentioned they were using quite a bit of locally sourced grains and hops. So if you're traveling, definitely make a trip down and visit Bell Springs and Dripping Springs. And if you're here locally, you for sure should check out the beer club and wine club they have going on, as well as just making a trip in to see what they have to offer. And finally, if you like this content and want to see more, definitely subscribe and maybe make comments below if there's anything specific you'd like to see. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see what we're pouring next. And for the first time in the channel history, we're doing our very own giveaway, where we'll be giving away 2 sets of 6 of these sampler bottles of Still Austin Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is a Texas bourbon, and don't let the size of the bottle fool you. This is plenty enough for a couple of drinks in each bottle, and a very quality Texas bourbon. So check out our Instagram to enter to win some of these bad boys, and as always, keep pouring.